Today is Relationship Tuesday, and we're going to be focusing on some of the different issues that we face in our relationships. And our very first segment, we want to hear about the story of restoration. Joining me on the show, I have Doreen. Is that right? Yes, Doreen Kantha. So good to have you on the show, Doreen. And you're going to be telling us a bit about your story.
Yes, definitely.
Right? So you've been through a lot. You've been through divorce, you've been through depression, you've basically hit rock bottom at some point, but you're a successful businesswoman. Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And so, we really want to just hear your story and be inspired by you this morning, and hopefully it can encourage someone who finds themselves in a similar situation. So you are the owner of Patti Pergola.
Yes, Linens and Decor.
Linens and Decor.
Yeah, Patti Pergola is a product of Linens and Decor.
All right,
Yes.
good for you. So tell us where your journey started with that.
With the Patti Pergola, all right, that started just after I got divorced. That was in 2011. And it was the idea that actually I was able to take on and work on as I was trying to heal and restart my life. So it's the first wooden movable tent. From my research, I've not seen it worldwide. Basically, I just saw a structure that was somewhere permanent, because there are pergolas all over, but they're permanent. Nobody had made it movable.
Right.
And I decided, okay, how do I make this movable? Because I was in the events industry already at the time for 6 years, and I figured that would make for a very good tent.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's where Patti Pergola started.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that makes your story successful is that you've been able to sort of rise from out of divorce, because you started your business after going through a divorce.
Yes. Yes and no.
Okay.
I got into the events industry in 2005-06. And that time I was doing decor and linen and the normal tents, tables, chairs. Then I was doing it in collaboration with my ex-husband, but I was the one who was running the business.
Okay.
So once I got divorced after 6 years, that's when I started Linens and Decor, because the business couldn't continue since we had separated.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your marriage. How long were you guys married for by the time you were divorced?
6 years.
6 years.
Yes.
I mean, how was the marriage? When you first met each other, was it? I mean, I'm assuming you came into it like excited and butterflies. Or was that your story or?
Yeah, I came into it ignorant. I was very.
That's honest.
Yes, very ignorant. I was very young. I was 24.
Okay, wow.
And I was pregnant. So basically, it was I got married because I was pregnant. Really, it wasn't something that was planned.
Okay.
And I hadn't done my homework, or even prayed. Or I wasn't ready. I was in college. I was partying. So in the process of that, got pregnant, and he was. He took responsibility and said, "I'll marry you." And at the time, I was thinking maybe I can wait. We take care of the baby, then get married later. But then how society is.
Right.
So my dad felt that no, you can't have a child outside of wedlock. And of course I also felt like it makes sense to have a family and raise the children in a family. But then during the marriage it was very rocky, because both of us were not ready. He wasn't, I wasn't. We were not mature enough for the marriage, because there was a lot of infidelity on his part. So that really...
Now while you're in the marriage?
Yes, while I was in the marriage. So, and it started very early. So it was, I really became sad, but I didn't know I was depressed. Stopped taking care of myself. I think back then I used to wear baggy jeans, hats. It just wasn't me. But it was, I think, in 2009 that I was unable to get out of bed, literally. So one morning I wake up and I try to get my leg out of the bed, and I can't. And I'm like, I'm trying, and I can't. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I took my computer, which was on the side of my bed, and Googled can't get out of bed, and I was shocked. Right there, it's depression. And I'm like, me depressed, like how is it possible? But I quickly accepted, because by this time I'd realized that if I didn't help myself I would die, because despite the fact that I was here with a partner, he would leave in the morning, leave me in bed, come back, find me in bed. So I think even him, he wasn't aware of what's going on. So I felt if I don't help myself, then who will? So I Googled shrink in Nairobi. For the first time, shrink in Nairobi. And a list came on, picked up one who was in the Kenya. Anyway, I can't remember exactly the place. But when I went to see him the following day, and he told me, you have to come and see me, he admitted me immediately. So I was in hospital, I think, for a week or two. It's a bit hazy, but I had to be put on drugs and everything, exercise, and finally, but when I got out of it, and he told me, like, when you get out of this, if your husband doesn't change, you will leave him. And that's the first time I came into face-to-face with the possibility of leaving my ex-husband. And indeed, when I got out and I realized I was not the best mother, because I mean, I'm locked up in the room. I don't want to see anybody, including the children. That doesn't make me of a very good mother. At the time, I had 2 daughters. So that's when I decided, as we went on, I told my mom what was going on, because a lot of the time, you know, we told the marriage is between the 2 of you. You should not go telling everyone. And speaking to my in-laws about it, they kept on coming back to say, you know, you take, pray, you know, like, there's a time he hit me, they told me you should have run away. So I felt that I couldn't. This is
now your, like, his side of the family telling you should have run away.
Yeah. So I felt, you know, it's time for me to tell my side of the family. So I told them, and they were like, okay, now we know what's going on. So I told my mom, and I'm thinking of leaving because I don't see him changing, because every year there was a different woman to deal with. Every year there was something different to deal with. And I am the type of person who believes in getting up. If you know, if you fall down, you get up, you dust yourself up, and you move on. So I kept on forgiving and believing that things would get better. And up to today, I still believe that you should always dust up. I mean, you should move on, forgetting the past, and you know, and believing in a positive future. But then in this case, that wasn't the case. It kept getting worse. To the point where I decided, you know what, I've had enough. It's time for me to leave. And the day I left was really dramatic, you know. So I normally tell ladies not to wait until it becomes really dramatic for you. So if you see there's no change and you've prayed, don't just keep praying. Like, you need to take action at some point. Yeah.
What do you mean by the day you left? It was very dramatic.
It was very dramatic. I actually.
This is not after. Sorry, this is after you've completed treatment?
Yes, this was after I've completed treatment. And you know, the thing with depression just doesn't go in a day. You're still, you know, working on it, but this time you know that, you know, you have to change things. So this time I just got fed up, you know. I think there was another incident of a different woman, and when I asked him about it, he got angry.
So these are like at least 6 women in the time that you guys were married.
Well, I can't even count. I've not. It's and it's not like I would really even meet them. Some I met, some I didn't. Some it was messages, you know. So, but it was, and even though there was nobody, there was, you know, when you're not focused on your relationship, you really would not. You're not there. So you're always feeling like this person is really not here, you know. So yeah, so that's that. I think that night I left. Luckily, the children are not there. So I told him I'm leaving and I'm packing up and I'm going. And then like, oh, go, you know, like, you go. So I'm like, oh really? And I got so annoyed, like, after 6 years of you know, of all this. And I took a bottle and I smashed the TV. That was, yeah, so I was really livid, you know. But I left that night, you know, and I called my sister and I just went and I never looked back.
Wow. Have you guys spoken ever since?
Yeah, we speak because of the children. During my healing journey has led me to the point where I'm okay with him. Like, I don't have anything. I forgive him because I came to realize people are different and we are all broken, you know. So if we don't realize our brokenness, it's easy for us to break other people. So with that in mind, and of course, God, the one thing that God says is to forgive, because if you do not forgive, really, you will carry bitterness for a very long time. And I don't think I'll be here today remarried to a wonderful guy if I hadn't forgiven and moved on. but I took time. Immediately I left him, like a month to, I really shut down my social life. I stopped, because at the time I was clubbing, I was drinking, I was smoking, I was using all these things to run away from, you know, the pain. But I told God, you know, I'm so far from you now, and I want to get back. Please help me to get back to you. And in that process, I was able to quit all these things. And the other thing is, I really advise women going through that is to abstain. You really need to abstain, because God calls for holiness. There's no way you're going to heal if you're still going out with other men, and you're just adding, you're piling on more trash and more trash and more trash. So those are the things that really helped me to be able to heal. For 4 years, I was just, you know, taking care of my children, working on this new idea that today, you know, has brought me in the, you know, in the events business. It's one of the leading it's one of the leading tents in the market right now, because it's new, it's different, it's rustic.
Okay.
You know.
I want to take you back a bit to talk about, so you were struggling with depression while you were in the marriage.
Yes.
And then you wake up one day and you decide that you're walking out.
Yeah.
What happened afterwards? How were you able to sort of numb yourself to come to that decision? Was it about a matter of numbing yourself to come to that decision? And after the divorce, did you sort of find yourself almost slipping back? Or how did you handle that?
What happened is, I think it happened at a pivotal point of my life. I had just turned 30, and I started asking myself questions like, okay, when I turn 60, how will my life be like? And the way my life was at the time was not how I envisioned to grow. You know, I had seen my parents together for years, and I'd never seen my dad raise a hand on my mom or cheat on her. You know, he was always there, loving. So I had that perfect memory in my mind, and I knew what I was in wasn't okay. So it was based on that fact. And I looked at my children, I'm like, what example am I going to be giving them? Because if this is how they grow, that's what they'll get into. And that's what actually propelled me to get, I got fed up. Okay. I was like, there has to be better. And if there's no better, it's okay. Let me be part of the statistics, you know. Because one of the things that propels people is fear. But luckily, my fear first of finances, you wonder like, okay, if I leave this man, how will I sustain? You know, sustain? Then you fear the society. What will people say? You know, those are the two main things, and those are the two main things I had to deal with. So the first one, for cash, at least since I was doing something, I knew I could sustain myself. And secondly, we had started building. You know, we had put all our money to build a house in Karen, in just after Karen, and I decided I'd rather not get into that house than get into that house and sad, because I'd envision myself in that house and I'd see myself sad. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be part of those people who drive a Mercedes and live in a nice house, but they are unhappy. Right. So that I had made up my mind. And my parents had taught me from a young age that money isn't everything. What matters most is your happiness. Then in fear of what people will say, I was like, I'm crying every day. Where are all these people who are crying with me? I'm like, no one is here to cry with me. I'm the one crying. Right. So I was like, you know what? I don't care. I called my mom. I explained to her. I told her, I can't do this anymore. She told me, we will support you. I understand.
I think it's important for us to say that, and you've talked about God, so I believe faith is part of your life. And so you'd agree with me that, you know, it's not that we're advocating for divorce or anything. It's just you got to a situation in your relationship that things were just that bad. But we're not here advocating for divorce. But in light of what you've been through, as we get ready to wrap up this segment, maybe you can tell us, you know, when you look back at your life and how you got into the relationship, how you got pregnant, got into the marriage, and then what it ended up being, maybe you can tell us a bit, you know, what would you, if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself? Or, you know, what lessons can you do? Obviously now you have children, and that's a blessing from God, even out of a difficult relationship. But, you know, for a young woman who's watching you right now, she's in college, she's clubbing, she's smoking, she's going out drinking with her buddies. And maybe there's been situations where she's almost found herself where you were, you know, those many years ago. What would you tell someone like that who's watching right now?
There's one thing I tell people. If my ex-husband and I back then had put God as first, and that, you know, because I think we would have survived. One of the reasons marriages fail is because of the lack of fear of God. Because if you don't fear God, you're capable of doing anything, from cheating to getting
Beating,
angry, you know, to beating, to you're capable of basically anything. It's the fear of the Lord that actually stops people from, you know, going into the other extreme. But also at the same time, I advocate for people getting to know themselves, and it starts within. And you're not going to know yourself. I actually came to discover myself more in the 4 years that I was alone than before, because before I got married, I was clubbing. You know, I was really not focusing on me and improving myself and growing myself. So as a young woman, I advise, just get to know yourself. Stop. Yes, it's a lot of fun to go out. It's a lot of fun to do all these things. But you need to stop and ask yourself, who am I? You know, who am I? Get to know why you're on earth and what do you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, Doreen, thank you so much for sharing your story. And it's so encouraging, I think, for many people who've been through difficult relationships to see, even depression, to see that, you know what, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There's hope. You can pick yourself up, as you've been saying, and go on and, you know, live a happy life, have a successful business. So kudos to you and all the best to you as you continue.
Thank you very much.
Guys, we're going to be back right after this short break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about, do you actually understand your partner? And I think Doreen's story is going to segue very nicely into that next discussion. This and so much more right here on Full Circle with Joyce. I'll be back right after this.